episode of The Hot Seat. I'm your host, Marie Wiese, and this is where we ask the tough, pressing questions of the day of Microsoft partners, what's going on in their business. And today I am fortunate to be joined with Kristen Sage, who's the CEO of Western Computer. And I've been following Kristen's trajectory with the company for quite some time, and I'm always impressed by how you show up, where you show up. You're an amazing leader, Kristen, and I think somebody in the channel that people look up to. And for those people who don't know Kristen, you're going to get to know her today, and you're going to get to know Western Computer today. Welcome to the show.
Awesome. Thanks, Marie. Thanks for having me.
So just sort of take me back to when you took over as CEO of Western Computer. Tell us a little bit about what Western Computer does, but more importantly, what was the pressing tech issue of the day that you were struggling with when you first took over with the business?
Yeah. So I took over back in, 2023 at this point. Western Computer is a Microsoft Dynamics shop. We do everything from BC to F&O on the ERP side, and then we supplement that with all of the Power applications as well as Microsoft CE across sales, customer insights, et cetera. So we really touch every part of the Microsoft stack. Our history is over 35 years at this point. Really started as mostly a BC Nav partner and have grown with our customers to kind of service that full stack. So really proud of that progression for the company. But, 2.5 years ago, where were we at? A lot of the ERP had been really successful over the 2020 to 2023 timeframe. Just the whole macro environment, it really exploded with people moving to the cloud as we moved through that maturity cycle. So we had a bunch of customers that were going live and doing all those things. And I think where we were is starting to understand and translating what is technically needed to a business process. And I bring that up because that skill set is one that is really hard to develop, but is going to be the most important as we look towards the future. That, we have transformed from saying, can the technology do it, to an assumption that the technology can do it. And it's just, how do we do it? And so now the knowledge is not so much based in like the technical skill set. It's more about the business process and having those conversations and imagining what the future could look like. So we were really making that stair step at that point, and having a lot of those conversations internally of how do we talk business process and customer needs, and less about the specific technical functionality that supports that.
So I always am amazed when I hear a business partner's been in business for 35 years. That's a lot of history, and that's a lot of longevity. So you took over about 2 or 3 years ago. What was your biggest challenge as CEO when you took over?
Well, personally, my biggest challenge is I don't come from a technical background. And so all of this, I came from outside of the industry. So I'm not from a Microsoft world. I did not come from an ERP implementation background. So personally, I would say that was my biggest challenge. For the business, I think the biggest challenge was really starting to take a lot of the inputs that other ecosystems have already been more advanced in and bringing that into the company. So really taking that next step, of moving out of the day-to-day operations and having our executive team focused on that, and advancing to like, what do we need to do in 2 years and 3 years and 5 years, and really starting to look beyond just the project today. It's more about what is the long term. And that's really been where the shift of our entire company has been, even with our customers. Like, tell us about where you want to be in 5 years from now so that we can help you get there step by step. Not just, hey, I want to go live on an ERP system. Like, why? Tell us the why so that we can formulate it to that, and have that drive the decision rather than have a very short-term view on why they're doing what they're doing, because technology is becoming the foundation of every company. Those who win are going to be those who leverage it best. But you can only leverage it best if you also do have the understanding of where you want your business to go long term.
Yeah, and I love all of that, and I think you're so brave. And the reason I think you're so brave is because I've been in the channel for 10 years. I've been in tech marketing for 30 years, but I've been in the channel for 10 years. And it's taken me so long to get to know this community and the products, and that's what, is people say about being part of the Microsoft ecosystem is not for the faint of heart. You're going to have to put a big investment in. And so I admire you because you're so brave. And coming in and saying, this isn't my sweet spot. I know how to build a really good services organization. I know how to build a really good company, but getting to know all the nuances. And I'm sure when you joined, you had people telling you certain things about the products, and there's a lot of history behind some of these products. You
Yeah.
mentioned the word Navision, which has now become Business Central. And I know I talk to partners a lot who've been originally Navision partners, and that's going back a long way. But I think the thing that you are raising, and I think this is an important point as we sort of segue our conversation to AI and what it means to be a frontier partner, or what Microsoft's expectations are of the partner channel and ecosystem, is around this idea that we need really strong project managers, strong leaders, strong business leaders who understand how to listen to a client and figure out not just where their business may or may not be going, but what their business has to do to function correctly to hit the goals they want to achieve. And, I think, and I'll say this as being somebody who's been in the tech sector for a long time, and you're absolutely right, your observation that we spent so much time leading with the features and functions because we thought that tech was cool, and that was the moment when tech was really starting to come into its own. And we've kind of lost that. At the end of the day, business people are trying to get something done, and they want to get it done as efficiently as possible. And that the business process behind something is way more important even than the technology. So where does this leave us then with AI? Because people say, well, we'll just slap AI on it and that'll solve the problem. What are your
So interesting. I just had a call recently, and one of the asks was, well, where are you doing AI in your business? And what we're trying to do is instead say, what are the things we know we need to do in our business? We had just had our leadership meeting a few weeks ago, and gosh, we put together this whiteboard mural app, for those of you that are familiar, 100 and some ideas, all these ideas of things we want to do in the business. And I don't think many businesses are short of a list of things they want to do in their business to make it better. Like, you give people that time, they have the ideas. Rather than having a box that is called implement AI across the system, it was more about, if we want to do all this in our business, how can we use AI in doing that, either in the project planning, the project execution, or the actual thing that we're trying to accomplish, the outcome that we're trying to get to. So, think of your account managers. If you're a sales team, that's probably the most familiar across industry. There's so much information about your customers across your entire company. They're calling your finance team to talk about their bills. They're talking to their project team all the time. They might be talking to your subscription billing person, or reaching out and attending a webinar. But you don't see that. It's really hard to see all of that and actually understand what is going on with your customers. That is now enabled. You can gather all that data in one place and run a sentiment analysis against it. So it's more about imagining, like, gosh, I wish I could have this. It's like, you probably can. Let's go talk about how to build that out. But the outcome is not, oh, I want AI. The outcome is, I want to understand what my customers need and want, and how they are interacting with us internally, and also how they're interacting with the world externally. That's the outcome you're getting to. Go focus on that, and then think about how AI can help you do that. I think that's where we've gone a little bit astray, is we all talk about just AI, but it's not. AI is a tool in the toolkit.
right.
Let's use it.
It's hoodwinked us a little bit. It's made us
Yeah.
believe that it's this great savior. And what we've noticed even in our own business is that AI can augment good thinking and good strategy. It can't do the thinking and the strategy for you.
Right.
And to think that, and this is the other thing, since the dawn of time, since the beginning of technology, there's always been this fight about buy versus build. And I think when AI first came upon us, everybody started to think, well, this means I can just do everything myself. I can just use AI to figure out how to do a better financial report. I could just use AI to figure out what's actually really going on with my customers in my database.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what we found is, yeah, you could do that as a one-time snapshot. You have to trust whether the data is right, that it's returning to you, but it's just a one-time snapshot. It's not actually improving the business process. So I think this is where we're hearing people say AI projects are failing because we went in thinking it was automating something or slapping technology somewhere where it wasn't. I think another part of it is the whole buy versus build thing, is that we thought we could build something and then we realized, hey, AI just, especially if you wanted an ongoing process in your business, you constantly have to be putting guardrails around it, managing it, figuring out how it's going to get handed from one person to the next. You're probably too young to remember this because I know you're one of the younger CEOs, and I think that's awesome because you're not going back to some of the bad practices. But there was a time when people in technology had a job for life because they built something and they couldn't leave because they were the ones who had to run it. And we all saw that wasn't a good thing. We saw that was problematic in our businesses and it created a lot of risk. So I think it's hoodwinked us a little bit into believing that it's this magic unicorn pixie dust and the heavy lifting still needs to get done. And as you're going forward now in your own business and when you're serving customers, where do you think the real value in what you do lies? Is it around business process? Like, where do you think the real value is in what you do?
Yeah, I think it's a few things. I think what we're going to see as a pivot of the real value is the ability. AI will only work in essence to its full capability if you have data for it to use. Like when you break down what is AI in the current state, which is changing every day. So in a few weeks, don't someone come yell at me that it doesn't work.
Don't quote you. Okay.
But yeah, in essence, what it is, it's an information aggregator and analyzer, but it has to have information. If you just let it go, and this is where people are like, well, it can hallucinate, et cetera. It's like, it doesn't know where to pull from. It's kind of like a little kid learning how to talk or walk. Like if it's never seen an example, it doesn't know where to go. So it has to have that information that it needs to aggregate. And so I think what's really important, where I think we're going to see partner shift and way we're shifting too, is, hey, let's talk about where are the best places to store that information across your business. How do we get that all in one place and then have the right AI feeds or talking to that information base? That's the second portion. It's get all the information in the right place, make sure it's clean. But the second part where I really think a lot of partners like ourselves can add value is to say, what do you want to ask of it? Like, how do you use that full information basis and start to think about, reports that you've done in finance, for instance. If you're like, hey, well, usually we've got this report, I got to run it every month. It's our top 20 customer spend and it's our top 20 AR spend. Okay, great. But what do you use that for? Like, what's the next step that you use that for? And how, well, okay, well, we do another reach out to those AR customers. Okay, great. Well, why don't you just have AI pull that on a daily basis and it can do the reach out for you? So it's not just about like, it can create the report. That's great. That's a first step. But what's next? Like, that's where kind of the maturation of AI comes in too. You can use Copilot to create that report. You can just say, query my ERP system, tell me my top 25, but you can create an agent that then does the actual email and responses back and forth. So I think that's the other reason why AI has failed a little bit in a lot of these projects. We tend to jump towards like the very far end and then we're like, well, it didn't work. And it's like, well, wait a second. We asked a 2-year-old to like run a marathon. Like, wait a second. No, first let it create the report. Okay, great. Now make sure that's working well. Now go build an agent off that report. Like this is a stair-stepping process. And we're all super excited about like the end game, but it's still a process to build.
I love that analogy. It's like asking a 2-year-old to run a marathon. You're absolutely right. And I think our expectations and how we're looking at it is kind of skewed. I'm going to ask you a tough question. And this is what we do on the hot seat. We ask tough questions. And I'm
Okay.
asking this question of a lot of CEOs as we lead up to AI and Copilot Summit in March. And it's a topic near and dear to my heart right now.
Okay.
And you can answer it personally, you can answer it from a business perspective, from a company perspective, but who is really benefiting from AI? Who is the real beneficiary of AI right now?
Man, selfishly, I feel like I am. And so I guess I'm going to speak from a personal frame. I'll give an example. We're doing a lot of work on defining who we are. Who is Western, right? What makes us any different than any other partner? And where do we best play? Where do we best not play? Because not everyone's going to work with everyone, right? What is our best thing? I have an entire project ongoing in my AI where I have been feeding it information and saying, okay, great. Now I generally know my brand voice. I know what I'm going to be as a brand, but like, here's our color palette. Do I need to change that, or is it generally okay? Does it align? So it's expediting that brain thought process. And what's really interesting for me in particular is when it asks you, like when you're interacting with an AI agent of some sort, an LLM, whatever you use, Chat, GPT, Copilot, et cetera. And it's like, oh, well, do you now want me to do this? Like I asked for a brand voice, et cetera. And then it was like, would you like me to put together some sales pitch scripts? I was like, oh, actually, I would. Thank you.
Well,
It's helping me develop that. Yeah. And I was like, oh, I wouldn't have thought about that right away. And so it told me where to go next. Now, I think what'll be interesting is like, as humans, though, we can only absorb so much change at once. And so I think AI is going to enable us to like have a lot of information at a lot of time. Like I could roll out a whole new branding strategy tomorrow, but it's not going to be effective because I still have to train humans, et cetera, on the back end of it. So who is AI benefiting? Right now, it's benefiting me as a thought partner, and it's allowing me to really develop my thoughts without needing to bring as many people involved early on and kind of bring them a little later once I've developed it. So I think it will expedite our ability to think through things. I'm sure there's plenty of people it's not benefiting, but I think anyone who is engaging with it is going to feel benefits. Personally,
I absolutely agree. I absolutely agree. But that is a great answer. And I love your answer. Obviously, as a marketer, that's all near and dear to my heart, how we work through that process.
mm-hmm.
Um, and I mean, that's a great example where I could look at that example and say, oh, God, that means I'm out of business. But it actually doesn't, because you've worked this through to create clarity. And it's just going to make it stronger when you go to your execution team and say, here's what we're actually executing. This is what we're actually, you know, building towards. And I think that's amazing that you're using it in that way. And I love that answer. So thank you very much for sharing that.
Yeah, and the value add of it, let's pull on that branding example a little bit more. It would have been useless had we not had 4 brainstorming sessions prior to that with our executive team of who are we? My Chat GPT, my Copilot, it can tell me who Western is to the external market. It can go pull on websites, et cetera, and tell me how we present ourselves. But a lot of that's pulling just from our own materials. But I was like, internally, who are we? Let's ask our customers, who are we? That work needed done. Not that wasn't going to be substituted because that information lives in people's heads. It doesn't necessarily live somewhere where an LLM can reach into it and analyze it. Going to the earlier point, it's only as good as the information you give it or the information that's available to it. But emotions and feelings, like it can try to read that, but once again, it's reading all that off the internet. Like you got to take it with a grain of salt. So we had to do all that. And that's really where we actually had brought someone in to help us have those conversations, ask those questions, but that still required people. And that was the most value add. The least value add was then saying, go put this into 4 differentiators, right? Go figure out the words for me. I've told you the ideas, go execute.
Absolutely. It has been a delight chatting with you. I always love our conversations, and I love following what you're doing. And I love the fact that you are really leading the charge here. And I almost look at Western Computer as a 35-year-old startup, because when you took the helms, I know you wanted to lead it into the decade. And I think you're doing an amazing job. So thank you for being on the show today, Kristen.
Thank you, Marie, for always being arms wide open to someone who's brand new to the ecosystem and is going to make plenty of mistakes. So I appreciate you helping me through everything and looking forward to the future.
I can't wait to see what the future brings for all of us. You've been listening to another episode of The Hot Seat. I'm your host, Marie Wiese. And as always, thank you for listening.